We are talking about my book, A Joyous Journey, Finding Faith Through Fear, that I wrote based on the experience of me having my daughter. Just gave it time. I remember my mother just saying, give it time, things will work its way out. And that's kind of what I did. One day they called me and said that they thought that she was having a seizure. And I'm like, a seizure? When I say I prayed like nobody, I was just like, God, I can't do this. Now, I mean, what else are you gonna take me through? Like, this is enough. It's called A Joyous Journey, Finding Faith Through Fear. A few of the nurses thought that it was very different for a mother to journal everything I wrote in my journal every day. So from that, I just kind of thought that one day I may write a book to let parents kind of know what I had gone through. And then one day, Nina asked a question, which if you read the book, you'll find out she asked me a question. And that caused me to finally just say, hey, let me take all of these journal entries and write a book for her so she could understand exactly what I went through.
Little cutie pie Nina.
I love Nina.
Mikey, you love Nina?
Yeah.
Very good.
Let's get pacified, Nina. Fucking this ain't hard.
Look at
Like
her.
she knows she knows. What are you doing?
We are currently at Anne Arundel Medical Center Hospital in Annapolis, Maryland. Location is special to me because this is where my daughter Nina spent 89 days in the neonatal intensive care unit here at the hospital.
All right, Nina.
Well, God bless you. So she was in an incubator for a long time, for quite some time. So the most touching that I could do to her is to touch her hand. You even didn't want to do that a lot because they would tell me if I overstimulated her, that will make her heart rate go up. Was able to do what they call like a kangaroo care, where they would take her and they would just place her here on my heartbeat. And she had cords everywhere, you know. So it was that was always a process. So once they took her out of her incubator, once they put her back, that was it. So it would stress her out more than it would stress the mother out. So, but yeah, I got to touch her. I didn't really get to like hold her for maybe about a month, but it was still with the assistance of somebody being there watching over her, yeah. I walked in the NICU one day and I go to her room and I see a sheet looking thing on her door. Like nobody, and then I saw nurses coming out and like all covered up, their hands, and I'm like, what in the hell is going on? I was terrified. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. And you just constantly see numbers up and down, you know. As I came in, and the nurse had this look on her face, and she kept telling me, just pick up your baby. I was like, okay, I plan to do that. And I went to pick her up and she said, just hold her real tight. And I said, okay. Only to find out later, they told my mother, they didn't tell me, that they had almost lost her that morning. And she had a rough day. They were doing everything. because they said they could not imagine me walking in that hospital and them having to tell me, because they already knew I was like a zombie up in there. And they did everything. They kept saying Nina kept coding. But they told my mother, and believe it or not, my mother waited years later to tell me that. She never told me when Nina was little. She might have told me when Nina was like 5. She shared that information with me. Isn't that crazy? Some days I prayed, some days I didn't. I just was like, it's no reason, it's no need. But yeah, definitely tested. It definitely gave up a few times. Yes, I did. Yeah, I felt like it was a punishment. So for a while, very angry, had a hard time praying and asking God to help me. Some days it would just be a cry, and I feel like he knows what my cry is, but I didn't trust him at that time. So, but as things begin to process and things start to get a little better, I begin to say, okay, I know what this is. I mean, God has taken me through things before, not quite this serious, but I just begin to just try to, pray my way through it and just kind of trust him. Again, trust this process. And with the process is trusting him that he will make things all well, I guess. But I would go in every day. I would always take a journal, of course. It had a television in there, a bathroom, and I would just go in. Some days I wouldn't even turn the lights on. This window that I'm pointing to right there on this corner is where her room was. So she was in what they were called a critical care room. So it was a room big enough for the parents to spend the night. I would sit there some days and I would just stare out the window because I would be there all day. Some days it would be 8 hours, some days it would be 12. I would just lose track of time because I never wanted to go home. And I will hold her for sometimes for hours. And I would sing to her all the time. I would sing to her all the time, and that's all I did, and nothing. I don't even think I talked on the phone that much. Initially told me she wouldn't come home until her initial due date, which would have been late January, early February. I had her in October, so I was already anticipating her being here for quite some time. When she started doing well, maybe about 2 months in, they were like, she can come home, she can come home. But at that time, I was afraid to take her home because I was used to somebody being there. So it was a happy time, but it was a very scary time for me to take her home. Once they started talking about bringing her home, yeah. And again, the journaling is what really, really helped me because I would go back sometimes and I would read what I wrote like 2 weeks before. It's like, oh, whew, I'm in a better place. Her and I in a better place than we were, 2 weeks ago. The journal entries are in there. Some of the journal entries had to be edited a little, but we did capture the journal entries, and then that leads you to the chapters of the book. So when you read a certain chapter, then you'll know from the journal entry that you previously read, that's what happened during that time. So yeah. I had several journals. So I had a journal that I wrote while I was pregnant. Then I had a journal the whole time she was in the hospital, and that was a journal keeping up with like what she was eating, her weight, her nurses' names, her doctors' names, everything, what I was eating. I wrote everything down. And one nurse was like, she has never seen anything like that in her life. And so then I had a journal afterwards when I brought her home. And then I also had a journal of letters I used to write to her. So when she got older, she could read those letters of how I was feeling. I would say just don't be so hard on yourself, and just to trust. I mean, trust God or whatever that faith is that you depend on, because what's going to happen is going to happen. But for me, I'm glad I went through this journey. It allowed me to check myself and know that everything is not planned, but it also formed an even closer bond with my child than I may not have had if the process was easier. I mean, now that I have a a healthy 14-year-old, and I can tell her all about what I went through with her getting here and how she's just a miracle. She knows that I love her, but I love her so much, you know what I mean? And for her to know what I went through, and now she can better understand why I love her so much. My journey is just what it was, but I think them reading what I went through could also apply to another situation that they're going through. The biggest thing is just trusting a process. You know, you go through things, but it most likely lead to that light at the end of the road. And if not, then it's still just walking through fear and finding out that, you know, if you keep your faith or in whomever you believe in, that it will bring some type of calmness to you, you know, no matter the outcome.
And we're getting a picture on the TV.
You got a good picture, huh?
There's a great deal of contrast in it.